about a week ago, I had a comment in class that got a lot of funny looks, and that comment was that strength work is practice, and got a little bit of funny looks because it was in reference to the idea of scaling inside of a workout based on what you had done in the workout, in like the strength piece and the technique piece that we did prior. We did power cleans prior, and you know, me being me, started peeling people apart and like, this is what you're doing wrong, and try to do this, and then people hit one good rep and then they hit three bad reps, and that's just the process of learning. But that comment of strength work is practice actually comes from somewhere. It comes from the idea that my goal, and the goal for most people, all people really, but for most people in general, is that like I do, especially CrossFitters or people just working out in general, I want my work in the gym to exist in real life. I don't want to just do good work in the gym and then use it in the gym. I want to be able to apply it somewhere else. So what that means to me is that if that is the case, when we're trying to train certain ranges of motion or certain movements, the goal is not to be good at that movement. The goal is to make that movement as transferable as possible to other things. The deadlift is a great example that most people do. When we go heavy on the deadlift, most people go really, really heavy, especially the guys. Ladies, sometimes maybe, it depends on who they are, but guys almost to a man go really heavy on the deadlift, to the point that like they're really beat up afterwards. And if the goal is to take that deadlift and apply it outside to life, there's pieces that you should have, right? I mean, there's parts like rounding of the back probably shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen more than, say 15% of your reps, right? If every rep above 315 is, alley cat the whole time, and you stand up, and you work, up by 20-pound increments to get to 425, like that's a lot of stress on your spine, and B, it's a lot of non-transferable movement that's only applying itself to the deadlift, right? Like, so that's, it's not great, but if your goal is to be good at the deadlift, maybe, right? Probably not if it's an alley cap, but small amount of upper back rounding isn't the end of the world. But if your goal is to be good at the deadlift, yeah, there's some fluff there, right? I can take, okay, well, I don't need to be really amazing in this range of motion for that. I want to take the deadlift and be really good at the deadlift. So I'm going to accept that I'm going to do things a little bit less than ideal. If I want to take my deadlift and apply it to the real world, I don't want to do that. And a lot of the times it comes down to the idea that there are different ways to structure and frame days in the gym. I know Ben Bergeron's talked about it. CJ Martin has. If you look at normal programming from any like OPEX facility, or like when we have personalized programming in the gym for our people, we have days that are like, hey, you're here to do this. Period. You're not here to crush this. You're just here to do it. And some days are even lower than that. And those 3 days, the 3 days that we try to look at are practice days, training days, and then competition days. Most people live in the competition world, especially CrossFitters. Everything we do is scored, right? And what ends up happening is people come into the gym and they look at the board and they go, somebody did that in 10 minutes. Well, I need to do it in 9:59 or faster, right? And what that leads to is, either pushing harder than you should, right? Or shorting ranges of motion, or using less than ideal ranges of motion. Which, if your goal is to be good at CrossFit, again, like there's a time and a place to do that. But if your goal is to be good at life, that time and a place is generally less than most people allow it to be. If you're competing 20% of your workouts in the gym, that's about enough. If you come into the gym 5 days a week and one day you look at the board and you go, Joe got, 5 rounds and I'm going to get 6. That's fine. But if you do that every single day, you're going to end up frying yourself out. Or getting hurt, even worse, right? And that comes back to, I want the goal of taking this into a transferable skill to exist. And if I'm injured, I can't take these skills and make them better. So competition's great, but there's a time and a place for it. The other 2 days look the other 2 types of days in the gym look considerably different when you really see people do it. When you see people who truly understand the differences, you see very clearly what each day looks like. And the first one and the most common is what I would call a training day. I know Ben Bergeron uses that terminology, and I'm going to just steal it. Thanks, Ben. But training days are the days, if competition is max effort, I'm going to, it doesn't, everything be damned, I'm going to go as hard as I can. Training days are those days where you go, oh, all right, well, Joe got 5 rounds. I'm in the general vicinity of Joe. I don't feel super good today. I should probably get somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 rounds. Oh, but Joe used 135. I don't want to use 135. I don't feel that great today. I'm going to take some weight off, right? I'm living in my 85% of perceived exertion world. I'm putting out a decent amount of power output. I'm still working on perfecting my movements. I'm working on, doing these things as well as I can, but under a certain amount of load. You see this a lot with weightlifting. A lot of weightlifters do this. I know I follow Maddie Rogers on Instagram. Maddie Cakes is one of my favorite things to watch generally because I just think she's awesome. But she does a lot of this stuff. 80% for triples and just I'm going to take this one weight and it's going to be perfect every single time. And it's a slightly challenging weight. It's not a guaranteed lift, but she just continually drills it until it is. And those are training days. Those are the days that you come in and this, I'm just going to do this and do this and do this under a certain amount of load. They're generally stressful, but they're really good. They're framed in a way that you actually adapt really well to them. You should never be in danger of being injured. You should never be in danger of doing things so wrong that something goes catastrophic. But you're gonna be fast and be accurate and still do it. This was a lot of the time that we did on the ranges in the military, especially at recon. Our guys, the entire workup for our force recon platoons was this type of thing. It's shooting at some amount of speed, but not at max speed, right? That was reserved for testing days. I think they do 4 of them throughout the entire shooting package. It's like a 6-week or 8-week shooting package out at 3rd. So those things it's different, right? It's a different frame of a day, right? And then the day below that is the one that I think most people miss altogether, which is a practice day. Practice days are generally what most people consider really light. When I write them for Dan, they are super light, build to an easy single. You're moving, you're perfecting the movement, or in a different world, you're learning the movement. And learning the movements is very odd, right? Because so many of us have gone off on these paths that are if I want to go straight up and down, I'm over here right now. And that's not exactly ideal. I need to come back and relearn how to do the movement before I can move up. The example is things like a power clean, right? If I'm starfishing my feet in a power clean, unless I want to be really good at the power clean, do I need to do that? Not really, right? I would rather, if you've ever seen the video of Dimas doing power cleans, everything's the same. The pole's the same. His feet end up in the same spot as his squat cleans. Everything's the same. He's making the lift as transferable as possible. Why? Because it doesn't matter what he power cleans. That's not a tested movement. It matters what he squat cleans. So I want that to train this, and that's why it's just a different way to do it. I want to power clean in a way that's going to make my squat clean better, which makes my competition days better. right? And all three of these should stack on top of each other. For a lot of people, they don't. They get so wrapped up around the numbers that they end up starfishing their cleans, or they end up rounding their back in a deadlift, or bending their back in a press or something like that. Strong First talks about this with the kettlebell press. People start leaning away from the press to press more weight. Well, that's great for a testing day, but it doesn't mean anything when you're trying to make it transferable. So that comes, and that's kind of, those are the three ways to structure your training. And it's all about framing it, right? Like, especially if you're doing group classes, sometimes you just need to be able to frame it in your own head, just being like, I feel like a superhero today, and it's Fran, so I'm gonna go balls out. Or I feel terrible today, and it's Fran, so I'm gonna make every pull-up perfect and every thruster perfect, and I'm gonna take all 10 minutes to do Fran, and I'm not gonna get this massive like cardiorespiratory response, but my shoulder's not gonna hurt, and my elbows aren't gonna hurt, and my knees aren't gonna get beat up. So it's a different way to frame training. When do you go where to do what is very dependent upon who you are. I will say that almost to a person, if you compete all the time, you're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get hurt, or you're just not gonna learn. Like you're gonna drill in these movement patterns that aren't the best movement patterns for you. They're not transferable or whatever. So I think most people should spend the preponderance of their days training or practicing. How you do either of them is up to you. And it depends on how you learn. I personally learn really well by doing small amounts of practice coupled with large amounts of training. For example, I use the shooting piece. When I shoot pistols, I am more accurate going faster than I am going slower. And I use this stuff just enough so that I can go fast, and then when I realize I'm off, I ramp it back down. Other people do it different ways. They go slow, and they slowly build up, and then they touch the training piece. Maybe they touch the competition piece, and then they come back down. It depends on how you're built. It depends on how you're wired, and how you learn. But the idea that you're going to come in and every day has to be a PR day, and every day you have to get as close as you can to your PRs, is something that most people just need to take and just put off to the side. Not every day is a PR day. Most days aren't. I would say if you're in your training days, especially as you get deeper and deeper into this stuff, if you're PRing once every 12 weeks, you're doing really well. Framing your training, framing your mindset coming into the gym is very important.